Welcome back to another video. Um, Today we're gonna go over a game I played in a quad. It was a rapid game. We both had 30 minutes and 5-second delay, which means like 5 seconds before your clock starts running. This was a game I played as white, and here we go. So I played d4. I almost always play d4, but I've been learning e4 and c4. Just as a joke opening. c4. Hold on. Oh, having a glitch here. All right, sorry. Um, so basically, after c4, all right, I'll show you in another video. But c4, g6, and he plays c5. So basically, whenever they do this, you want to push your pawn in almost every position where you have pawns on c4 and d4. He plays b5. So this is the anti-Benoni, but it's basically Benko gambit. And I play queen c2 here. Normally, people take, and then after a6, you can sacrifice the pawn back, or you can accept the gambit. And actually, sacrificing the pawn is better than accepting the gambit. It's gotten better results, because if you accept the pawn, then their A file is open, and they tend to get a lot of pressure against your position. So if we just go through some moves here. Black puts all their pressure against these two pawns, and oftentimes one of them falls. And as you can see, black has decent results here in the database. But so one simpler solution is to just play queen c2, which is what I did. And after d6, he's supposed to take actually, and then I play e4, and he plays d6. But less common reply is d6. He's just leaving the pawn there. So if I take, he obviously gets this pawn, or just plays a6, and then he's basically, we're back into the gambit, and I don't really want to accept his gambit. So I play e4 now that my queen's defending e4, and I feel like this is a good solution to this opening, which is kind of annoying. So I move the bishop again, but I'm supposed to play like a4, because this is a useful move in Benko gambit situations, which is this type of opening where he plays c5, knight f6, b5. I move the bishop, and now he takes, and then I have to move the bishop again. So that's like a loss of time on my part. So I just lost the tempo. But my position's still good. It's just like not as good as if I have the free a4 move in. So now we're like out of book. And he played after knight a6, bishop d2, bishop c3. There's only a few games from this position. And after knight e8, which is a thematic move in this position because he goes knight c7. After knight e8, there's no more games, and we're just playing out of book. Though, although I haven't. It's not like I knew like he was gonna play this and like all these games. It's not like I have them memorized or anything, even though they've been played. It's been played before. It's surprising how much little like it's not like every chess game has been played, even though there's like millions and millions of games in the database. Voice crack, wow. So he does what he said he was gonna do basically when he played this opening, which is brings the rooks here, bring the queen out, and try to pressure my queen side. So now after knight e8 though, I can play e5 and try to gain space in the center. And so he's attacking my pawn, but there's something called an in-between move. And basically it's called Zwischenzug in German. And once you do this, it's like how you win a lot of games because basically I take his pawn and he doesn't really want to take because if he does that, I'm gonna take and then take and then well actually it's not like that strong, but I have a good position because his c pawn is weak and I can pressure this pawn. I can also get the pawn to e7 by pushing it, although that would probably be pretty weak. Anyway. So he just has to reply. A more like um a more forcing move would be like queen g6. And now instead of taking the pawn, obviously, I am threatening like something, and then he has to deal with that threat, and I checkmate him. So that's not a very good example, but after after going here with my queen, he doesn't want to take, he has to do something else. And normally in Zwischenzug, this is a more critical line. Like he has to do something, and then it's good for me. And here I take his pawn. He tries to defend, and there, I checkmate him. So that's not gonna happen, obviously, but that's an example of Zwischenzug, like a bad Zwischenzug. So I take, and he replies by recapturing. So I take his bishop, which defends his king, and now I check him, forcing him back. And I'm attacking the dark squares with my knight. So I'm thinking about queen f6, queen f3, queen h3, knight e4, knight f6. So all these are attacking moves, and the knight and the queen work well together. So I'm thinking that this is like a good pawn sacrifice. And actually, he doesn't take my pawn, which is a winning position for me, according to evaluation, says I'm up 5.4 because queen f3. And then after he defends, like his knight and pawn with his queen somehow, I take his pawn. And now he's kind of losing because he has to, if he like defends his pawn, I can take his knight. And if he tries to pin me, for example, I can take with check and just get out of trouble. And after all this, he's like dead. So knight g5, and he attacks my knight, forcing me away. But that just chases me to a square I want to go, which is e4, because f6 is a really weak square now that his bishop is gone. So I'm really glad I trade those bishops off by taking instead of trying to defend my pawn with like something passive like rook d1. Although if he takes, I'm playing queen f3, not queen h3. So I'm not sure really why he had to play this move. Oops. But he takes my pawn anyway. And now I go queen d2, threatening both his knight and pawn on h6, so on and so forth. I could also go queen f3, but I'm not threatening his knight now because my knight is in the way. And yeah, I'm not threatening anything except for this pawn. So for example, I can't just check him and take his knight because he's defending everything. So queen d2. After knight here, he's threatening my knight. I could take, but actually that loses my advantage. And yeah, somehow I knew that that wasn't the right move because I traded knights first. And then instead of taking his pawn on h6, which looks very natural because I'm threatening checkmate, right? He goes d5. And then I can't go knight f6 anymore because of this defense that's uncovered. And even though this looks very scary, I think he's okay. Because like, for example, queen f6. And now if I go check, my knight is undefended. and he's probably fine. And the position says it's pretty equal. Although I still have an advantage. So instead, I see this fork. Um, well, let's see if you can find the tactic. Pause the video, and here we go. I'm unpausing, or you're unpausing. So I go check, and now he has to move the king, and I go knight d7, winning the exchange. So, but he can take my pawn, and now if I take, um, he's attacking my queen, so I can't just take his rook. So he's meeting my threat with a bigger threat. So I take his pawn. So objectively speaking, I'm not sure I'm really ahead that much because we have the same outside pawns, similar pawns, and he has these rooks which are active. Though I have my queen and knight which are very active, and his king is pretty unsafe. Like if he just plays some careless move, like queen here, I just take his knight, or if he defends his knight, I can attack his king. So he goes knight here, which is a very creative move, but it's not a very good one because if I take, he takes my rook, and then actually I can just take his rook, and I'm still winning this. With the knight, not the queen. Anyway, I take this pawn, and now he has to deal with the threat on his rook and his knight. So he has to move the rook or the knight, and then I take his rook. So if he moves the knight, I take his rook. If he moves the rook, which is what happened, I take his knight. First, I'm getting my knight out of the way, and then attacking him with tempo, attacking his queen. And he's for some reason he sacrifices his queen here. I'm not really sure why he did that, but I guess he saves his knight that way. Now this is like the one move you don't want to make. It's like the most natural move on the board, but it's rook takes a4 because this is also known as back rank checkmate. So he has another trap like this later in the game, which is kind of surprising. But the safest move I found was just bring the rook back, so make sure I don't get checkmated. I mean, it's more passive than rook e1, but this is super safe, and it makes it clear that I'm not going to get checkmated. Which he doesn't need to know because he's my opponent, but it's like a safe move. It's like security over activity whenever you're like winning because you don't want to like blow your game. So basically this is just cleanup at this point. He doesn't take my knight because I'm threatening his rook, so he moves his rook away. I'm attacking his rook and knight now. And now he has this funny trick. If I just play like a normal move, like queen takes pawn, I'm losing here. And hopefully you can see how it's rook takes. And that's really this beautiful checkmate. I don't know what's called, but he sacrifices rook and his knight is controlling the key squares for my king. So that's why I can't be careless. And I take his knight instead of taking this pawn. And now he resigns because there's no checkmate. And I have the g1 and g3 squares for my king. So I'm just up a queen and a knight and a rook. So I'm up a queen and a knight for rook. And this should be trivial. Thanks for watching.